What's up everyone, Soldier First Class here. In today's mission, I'll be giving you my easy guide on how to beat the Promised Consort Radahn boss fight in Elden Ring's DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree. This is by far the toughest challenge in the DLC, and maybe even the entire game, but with this guide, you should be able to take Radahn out in no time. As with all my guides for Shadow of the Erdtree, I'll be showing you this fight with no Spirit Ash summons, but feel free to use them to make this fight even easier. We'll also be breaking down my build for the fight and the boss fight mechanics itself, so you can be better equipped for this fight, even if you don't run my exact build. But before we get started, if this guide helps you take out this tough boss, be sure to light the bonfire on that like button. And for more Elden Ring DLC builds, boss fight guides, and more, subscribe and turn notifications to all so you never miss an upload. But with that out of the way, let's get right into it. Before we discuss the actual fight, there's a few things we need to go over, because while my build and strategy work, it's important to know more in case you want to still run with your build. Radahn is extremely weak to Scarlet Rot in his first phase, so much so that one Scarlet Aeonia incantation or Hefty Rot Pot will proc Scarlet Rot on him, and that will be key to quickly getting through phase 1. While he's not as weak to Frostbite or Bleed as he is Scarlet Rot, these two status effects will be extremely useful in his second phase when he becomes way more tanky. His first phase is weak to Holy, but his second phase isn't, so bringing Holy damage here is just asking for an ass beating. As far as my build is concerned, for this we'll be using the Cross Naginata Spear. This weapon has a natural bleed buildup already on the weapon, but what makes it even better is that we can add cold to it without sacrificing the bleed. Meaning this weapon can now proc both Frostbite and Bleed, and that's super useful for how tanky Radahn really is. Whenever Bleed and Frostbite are procced, they do insane amounts of burst damage, with Frostbite adding an extra 20% damage for 30 seconds. The other part of using the Cross Naginata is that when combined with the greatshield, you can continue to block even while doing damage. It also falls under the pierce damage category, and Radahn is weak to pierce, so you're going after several of his weaknesses to make this method and build much more efficient. But by the way, if you want to go the Holy Shield route, I highly recommend the Black Steel Great Shield aspected to Holy. It gives you a 100 Holy resistance, but lowers its physical below 100 while weighing 10 pounds less than the Fingerprint Shield. In case you need the lesser weight, the shield is still very viable, especially with the Holy resistance. So now let's talk about the full build. I use the Cross Naginata with the Royal Knight's Resolve Ash of War aspected to Cold. Royal Knight's Resolve adds 80% damage to your next attack and doesn't cost very much FP to cast. I then combine this with the Fingerprint Shield with the no-skill Ash of War and aspect it to Heavy. Radahn's second phase is almost exclusively Holy damage, and we need as much Holy damage negation as possible, so you can just tank these hits with the shield. I would aspect it to Holy for more negation, but unfortunately that drops the shield's physical resistance below 100, and we need that to deal with the physical damage he deals also. I'm also running the Rakshasa armor set for extra damage, but keep in mind this drops each negation category by about 1 or 2 points. I don't mind this trade-off since we get the added damage benefit, but I also wouldn't blame anyone for not wanting to take any chances. As for talismans, I use the Erdtree's Favor +2 for added health, stamina, and equip load, the Twin-Headed Turtle Talisman for greatly increased stamina recovery, Golden Braid for an extra 22% holy damage negation, and the Great Shield Talisman for added guard boost to your shields. As for my Wondrous Physic, I'm running the Green Spill Crystal tier to raise max stamina, and the Green Burst Crystal tier for even more stamina recovery speed. For this fight, you want to have a medium dodge roll with as much stamina as possible, so that's the reason for all the stamina boosting components to this build. As for my level, I was level 232, but you do not need to be this level to make this method and build work. I've been getting some flack for having high character level in previous guides, and I think people are underestimating just how much the Fragment Blessing level is important. I also think if you're not leveling with the massive amount of runes this game gives you, you are severely hindering yourself, and unless you're doing a challenge run, there's literally no reason to not level up. I also have my blessing level at 20, and I highly recommend at least an 18 to 20 for this, the higher the better. Radahn does a lot of damage and is also super tanky, so a high blessing level and optimized build are more favorable for this encounter. For my stats, I had the following values: 60 vigor, 20 mind, 45 endurance, 80 strength, 41 dexterity, 21 intelligence, 36 faith, and 8 arcane. Again, you do not need this exact level or stats to succeed, these are just the stats I had. Trust me, even with these levels, Radahn was bodying me before I figured out this strategy. But with all that out of the way, let's discuss the fight itself. Radahn is a 2-phase boss fight, with the first phase being way more manageable than the second one. Make sure you do your buff routine before walking through the fog gate, as this fight begins almost immediately as soon as you do. I usually go with the Wondrous Physic, Golden Vow, and Flame Grant Me Strength. In his first phase, Radahn will usually open up with a spinning gravity attack, so to dodge this, you'll want to dodge roll into him as he lands. This is where you need to take advantage of his recovery time and either hit him with rot pots, one hefty rot pot, one cast of the Scarlet Aeonia incantation, or whatever you have that inflicts scarlet rot quickly. Once that's over, keep your shield up and start poking with your spear. You can tank damage while doing damage, and that's why this build works so well. Radahn's attacks do minimal damage and you're chipping away at his health in the process. Radahn also likes to drag his swords across the ground with gravity magic, carry rocks into the air, and then fire them at you. My preferred method of dealing with this is getting back from him and then running to the right or left, and when the rocks are getting close, jump in the direction that you're running. This should help you completely avoid this attack. He'll also do a gravity pull attack, though you'll want to block through because he'll suck you in and then unleash an area of effect attack that does constant damage for a few seconds. You can try to dodge roll out of it, but I've found much more success by just blocking. Radahn has his own version of the Lion's Claw attack, where he'll launch himself at you from a distance, do a flip and land with both swords, and sometimes it'll be the Savage version and he'll do another follow-up flip attack. You can dodge this by dodge rolling forward and left of him, but you can also block it. Keep in mind that you'll also want to release the block button during his recovery periods or at the end of combos, because even though we have all the stamina boosts, you're still going to be using a lot to both block and attack. Other than these 4 major attacks, the first phase is fairly simple. The consistent rot damage will probably do the most damage, but you'll also likely get a frostbite proc in there somewhere too. Just keep poking and blocking until Radahn's first phase is complete. With phase 1 down, now the fun begins. In this phase, Radahn does almost exclusively holy damage, which is where your shield comes in. The great shield is your best friend, and either option I suggested will do well here. He's also super fast and aggressive, so Scarlet Rot becomes a non-option here unless you're brave enough. Radahn will likely open with his Light of Miquella attack, which sees him float in the air and unleash a large blast of holy damage in a large area. If you're not confident you can outrun it, just tank the damage with your shield, but there are times where you can run outside of the attack's range. After the attack resolves, get in close on him and continue doing the poke method. Keep in mind, Radahn will also summon clones of himself now during certain attacks, similar to Millennia's second phase. These attacks are rapid fire, so I just block with my shield and wait for the attack to resolve. The final attack will be Radahn himself, so once he lands the final attack of a combo, punish him with the poke method. Since he is technically Radahn combined with Mohg, he features Blood Flame as a part of his arsenal. Avoid the Blood Flame by dodging around him or back away from the blast zone if you're too far in front of him to dodge. One attack you must absolutely avoid is his grab attack. Radahn will jump slightly off the ground and grab you when he lands, with Miquella placing a debuff above your head. This attack does no damage initially, but if Radahn grabs you again at any point during the fight, you'll be granted instant death. There's 2 ways to mitigate the impact of this. You can either dodge roll forward and to his left, or if you've already been grabbed, you can remove the debuff by using Miquella's Great Rune. You can get Miquella's Great Rune as a reward for defeating the Erdtree avatar boss. I didn't need it for my victory run against Radahn, but I was also definitely playing with fire by the end. It's worth noting that quite a few of Radahn's phase 1 attacks are still present here. They just look much more dangerous because of all the added clones and holy damage. But if you maintain the same strategy from phase 1, you should still be fine in phase 2, you just can't get overwhelmed and panic. For instance, when he unleashes his gravity pull attack, he'll pull you, do the area of effect, then launch himself into the air with clones for rapid fire attacks, then launch another area of effect. Just keep steady with your shield and ride out the storm. This is key to this entire phase 2. Radahn's most devastating attack is the Holy Meteor Crash, which he'll use when he gets roughly 20% health. This is similar to when Starscourge Radahn opens his second phase. Even at my level and blessing level, this attack one-shot me, so your best course of action to avoid this is as soon as you see him jump in the air, run as fast as you can to the opposite end of the arena. You can technically dodge roll this attack, but the timing window is so tight, it's almost not even worth trying, especially when you consider that this fight took so long to even get to this point. Run back in and continue taking advantage of the poke method. Eventually you'll proc Frostbite, Bleed, or even both in my case, and do massive damage in a short amount of time. And after all that, Promised Consort Radahn and Miquella are defeated. This boss fight may end up going down as one of, if not the hardest boss in Soulsborne history. Only time will tell if this fight will maintain its difficulty, especially since we've seen bosses get nerfed before, especially the original Radahn boss fight. Hopefully this guide helped you tackle this tough challenge and complete the Elden Ring DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree. If it did, be sure to light the bonfire on that like button, and don't forget to subscribe with notifications set to all so you never miss an upload. Thanks again for watching, and for all the latest Elden Ring builds, boss fight guides, and content, I'm Soldier First Class, and I'm on to the next mission. Later, guys.